two Chinese armored brigades clashed in a week-long training exercise at the Zhurihe Training Base in Inner Mongolia in 2015. Both brigades were equipped with identical armored vehicles and weapons. The Blue Opposing Forces Brigade, however, was organized and fought in the fashion of a United States Brigade combat team. The Red friendly force was crushed. Within an hour, we were hit with airstrikes, enemy satellite reconnaissance, and cyber attacks. Frankly, I never imagined it would be this hard, said Wang Ziqiang, the armored brigade commander of the Red Force. Wang's political commissar Liu Haitao was caught on camera sobbing after the defeat. Liu said that his unit was initially very confident of victory over the Blue Team, which was formerly a sister unit. But over the course of 7 days, we were beaten. We lost because we didn't meet realistic combat standards when training our troops, he said. Subpa training tells only part of the story. Between 2014 and 2016, the American Blue Team scored a total of 32 victories and 1 defeat against Red forces that comprised some of the best and the most well-equipped units in the People's Liberation Army, PLA. On average, Red forces sustained 70% simulated casualties after clashing with the Blue Team. The PLA's poor performance against a modern military unit gave President and Commander-in-Chief Xi Jinping sufficient reason to seek an overhaul. In September 2015, Xi announced sweeping military reforms that included a 300,000 troop cut, the creation of a joint command structure that has drawn comparisons with the United States' Goldwater-Nichols Act, and a military-civilian integration program that appears to draw inspiration from the American military-industrial complex. During his speech at the 19th Party Congress, Xi set 3 goals for the PLA. By 2020, achieve basic mechanization, make significant progress in using information technology, and elevate strategic ability. By 2035, become a modernized defense and military force. By 2050, become a world-class military. If Xi can fully implement his reforms while successfully fending off military and political opponents, the PLA should most closely resemble the US military in terms of organization and chain of command. The reformed PLA, however, is unlikely to best the US military in a conventional war given its technological gap and lack of warfighting experience. But factor in unconventional warfare tactics and next-generation technology, and the PLA may stand a chance of rivaling the world's strongest fighting force. Xi's military reforms appear to be driven by 2 factors: China's need as an aspiring world power for a modern military that can fight and win wars, and Xi's need to consolidate power in the Chinese Communist Party. The former factor is the more obvious of the two. While previous CCP leaders had carried out some military reform and updated the military's weaponry, the PLA had long remained organized along the Soviet model. Combat tactics and doctrine didn't differ much from the low-tech, ground forces heavy style utilized during the 1950 Korean War. While militaries around the world had been moving toward joint service operations since the 1980s, the Army was still the most prominent service branch in the PLA. The Navy and Air Force played an auxiliary role. The need for modern tactics and joint operations was firmly impressed upon the commanders who participated in or observed the training exercises in Zhurihe. Previously, training exercises were formulaic affairs that usually ended up with friendly Red teams defeating Blue teams made up of rotated units. Xi, however, required a professional effort to test the combat effectiveness of PLA units more rigorously. So the 195th Mechanized Infantry Brigade under Commander Xie Minglong underwent reorganization between 2013 and April 2014 to serve as a dedicated Blue Team. State media hinted that the foreign combat doctrine embraced by the Blue Team was similar to that of the US military, and its organization should more closely resemble a US combat brigade. A typical training exercise at Zhurihe would see the Blue Team launch nuclear strikes, carpet bombing runs, and electronic attacks against the attacking Red Force, as well as conduct nightly raids. Special Forces tactics were also utilized, Blue Team troops impersonating local government representatives delivering goodwill provisions to a Red Team force successfully met with and captured their commander. While the Blue Team was equipped with outdated Type 59 main battle tanks and Type 63 armored troop carriers, it is likely that they were simulated as M1 Abrams and Bradley fighting vehicles using multiple integrated laser engagement systems. Lastly, the Blue Team usually emerged overwhelmingly victorious as both a defender or aggressor force. The sobering performance of the various PLA units at Zhurihe seemed to be sufficient for Xi to convince the top PLA brass to adopt deep reforms for the military to stay relevant. The reforms that have been rolled out thus far appear to largely take reference from the United States. Operationally, the PLA may more closely resemble the US military after reform, albeit with a Leninist dual command structure that allows the CCP to retain full control over the troops. Xi Jinping's military reforms appear to draw inspiration from the US military and serve the dual purpose of modernizing the PLA and consolidating his control over the CCP. A modernized PLA will unlikely surpass the United States in a conventional engagement, but the outcome will scale toward the PLA if it uses unconventional tactics and weapons. In this scenario, the PLA is set to become the largest American military force to pose a threat to the US.